Welcome to this course. I am glad that you have enrolled to this course, Learn YAML from Scratch. This is a great way to start your learning journey towards learning YAML data serialization language. Every software engineer looking to create structured data in a human readable format should learn YAML. This course is aimed for software engineers at all levels, from beginner to advanced, who wants to get familiar with YAML. This course will provide an overview of YAML data serialization language and its syntax. I will also cover basic concepts behind the markup language and explain main features and show the key capabilities of this YAML language. There is no prerequisites for this course. However, basic familiarity with HTML, XML, and JSON would be very much helpful. The course is targeted at software professionals. If you are a software engineer, full stack web developer, DevOps engineer, software architect, manager, and hobbyist, or anyone looking to get familiar with YAML, you will find this course very much interesting and beneficial. At the end of this course, you will be able to understand what is YAML. You will become familiar with syntax of YAML, various data types, including complex data types of YAML. We will also look into some of the advanced features of YAML. We will look into various use cases of YAML and tools for creating YAML effectively. So let's begin our learning journey. Let's see what is YAML. YAML stands for YAML Ain't Markup Language. Earlier, its full form was yet another markup language, but later it was changed to YAML Ain't Markup Language, as it is way more than a normal markup language. YAML rhymes with the English word camel. YAML is a very simple text-based language. We will see various examples later in this course which will make it clear to you. For now, you just remember YAML is very simple and clear text-based human readable format. YAML is a data serialization language. By data serialization, we mean storing or preserving a state of an object or a system in a form which could be stored, exchanged, or retrieved later without any loss of information. YAML is not a programming language. It is just a format to store data like XML and JSON. These are the benefits of YAML. YAML is very human readable and simple. It has clean syntax. It is easy to use. It matches data structures of modern programming languages like Python, Java, Go, Perl. It has a consistent data model. It supports single pass processing. It is very expressive and extensible. Let us learn about different styles in YAML. In YAML, we have block style. Block style we have already seen in the previous example. It's a notation where key value pair is represented by a key, then a colon, and followed by values. And in block style, we represent a list by using hyphen, and every line is representing a element. Another example, this is an object with two properties, name and age. So this style
takes one line to store one property. There is another style which is called flow style or inline style. In this style, we represent list of objects in a single line within a square brackets, and every element is represented separated by a comma. So here you see color red, yellow, blue. This is equivalent of the above statement. To represent key value pair or set of properties, we use curly braces. So here you have a key, then colon and space. This is same as the block style, but then you have properties and various keys are separated by comma instead of new line. The flow style is similar to JSON, and YAML is a superset of JSON. So any JSON document, it could be treated as equivalent to flow style. Flow style is used for compactness. Let's see how to write comments in YAML. In YAML, comments are represented as a text which is starting with a hash symbol. So you see this line, this entire line is a comment. That means it's not representing a data, it's just providing information for the reader of the file about what this file contains. This will be ignored by YAML processor or parser. Here is another example of comment. Here comment is placed in line with the property. So this describes more about the property to make the file more readable. YAML provides only single line comments. There is no way to write a block comment. If you have a comment which you would like to span across multiple lines, then you have to write hash symbol at the beginning of each of the line. So this is an example of a comment which is spanning across multiple lines. While writing comments, just make sure you are not including hash symbol within quotes, otherwise it will not be treated as comments. In this section, let us see a simple data model which comprises of organization information, and we will later represent this using various popular data formats like XML and JSON. And comparing these data formats will help us strengthen our understanding of the concepts we have learned so far. It will also help us understand key differences between various representations and specification of data formats. So here is our information model represented as a diagram in tree. There are departments. Departments have properties which is name and head of department, and they contain number of employees. Employees will have properties like employee ID, name, manager and their date of joining. Let's see how this structure could be represented in various data formats.
Let us now look into how the data model could be represented in XML. This is a sample XML file representing the data model we presented just now. At the top, you see there is an XML declaration which specifies version 1.0 and the encoding, which is UTF-8. This is some technical details. Then we have the data, which is the departments, their properties, and list of employees within the departments. So you see here, there are starting tag and the corresponding ending tag. And within these, properties are provided. For example, name, head of department, and employees within the departments. Similarly, properties of employees is provided within employee start tag and closing tag. And it can store different kind of data, which is a string. There could be date and various other types of value. XML stands for Extensible Markup Language. It is designed to store and transport data across different IT systems. It is one of the oldest data format and it is heavily used for communication across distributed systems over the internet. Let's now look into the JSON data format. Here is the equivalent data in JSON. As you can see, there are a lot of curly braces and the key value pairs are used to represent objects. For example, department's object is represented as list of objects with property name, head, and further containing list of employees, which is an object with ID, name, manager, and date of joining as properties. So here departments is a list of department and employees is list of employee object. This object is very similar to JavaScript object. That's why JSON stands for JavaScript object notation. JSON is the most popular text-based data serialization format. Converting data to or from the JSON format is programmatically very straightforward using JavaScript. It provides lowest common denominator information model, ensuring JSON data can be easily processed by every modern programming language. However, it also has some drawbacks. It is relatively harder than YAML but simpler than XML. It is more readable than XML and has less overhead as well, as you don't have a start tag and the closing tag, which is replaced by brackets. There is also no technical details available in the data. As we saw in XML, first line contains the XML declaration about the encoding and version. This is not present in JSON. Let's see how the same information model can be represented in YAML. Here is the YAML representation. We have departments, which is list of department, and each of the department will contain list of employees with properties, employee ID, name, manager, and date of joining. As you can see, YAML is more cleaner and concise, and it is more human readable and easy to modify manually. Programmatically, YAML is little more complex than JSON as it supports large set of data structures. Also, it supports various complex data structures which we will learn later in this course. YAML is superset of JSON.
A variable in YAML is a name which is used to store a value. It is followed by colon and then with a single space. This is also known as scalars. A scalar or variable can contain text or a string value. It can also contain numeric values in the form of integers or float. There is another data type which is supported, which is called Boolean value, which can be used to represent true or false. A pipe character or a vertical line, when used in front of a string variable as shown here, this will make the string stored with new line characters preserved. So this variable will be stored as this particular string. Here /n represents new line characters. So the YAML parser will preserve new line characters while interpreting this string. Another representation of a string is using the arrow. This means do not preserve new line characters. So here the interpretation of the string will not include new line characters when this arrow or greater than sign is being used. YAML automatically detects the type of a variable. For example, this is interpreted as integer, floating point, boolean values respectively. In case user wants to force the type, tags could be used in YAML. There are various tags supported, for example float. Here variable age will store 23 as a floating point number instead of integer. In the same way, here the variable married will store true as a string value instead of boolean. This is forced by using tag str. Integers are of following forms in YAML. You can store negative numbers, you can have 0 positive numbers, binary numbers, octal, hexadecimal, and you can use underscore for better readability when you have a long number, and there is base 60 hexadecimal numbers which is represented like this. Following is the representation for floating point number. You can use minus sign followed by the floating point number to denote negative floating point numbers. Dot symbol is used to represent the decimal point. Infinity and not a number. These are two special values which is supported in YAML. Boolean values comprises of true and false value. In addition to true false, you can use y no, yes no, capital or camel case can also be used to represent Boolean values. As we have already learned, str is the tag for storing strings. In addition to Unicode characters, strings can have escape characters, which is a representation of non-printable or non-visible characters. For example, /n denotes new line. Similarly, there are other escape sequences. YAML supports all the escape sequences supported in C language and many more. To make the parser interpret a value as null value, you can also use tag null. Instead of null string, you can use tilde character as well to represent null value. Null could be used in both the places as key or as value. Timestamp represent a moment in time. This is represented using ISO 8601 format. If no time is specified, it represents date, and time is always suffixed with the time zone. If there is no time zone, then UTC time zone is assumed in YAML. When you represent date by omitting the time, it will be defaulted to 0 hours, 0 minutes, 0 second and in universal time zone. Here are different representation of time for your references. These are various basic data type. Now you have covered all the basic syntax of YAML and various basic data type available in the YAML language.
Let us now learn by example advanced data types in YAML. First, let's learn sequence. Sequence is a list of members and each of the members is denoted by a leading hyphen. So example is the list of colors or sequence of colors: red, orange, yellow. Here the white space after the hyphen is very important. If we remove it, the YAML will become invalid. Another example, colors, which is a key, value is a sequence which contains three elements: red, orange, and yellow. Again, important thing to note is sequence is ordered sequence of nodes or items. So if we change the order of elements, the sequence will become a unique or a different sequence. Sequence can also be represented in flow style using square brackets, and each of the members can be separated by comma within the square brackets. So here is the representation in the flow style, which is equivalent to this sequence or the one here. Sparse sequence. Sparse sequence is a special kind of sequence which can contain null or empty values. Here is an example of a sparse sequence. You see there are various members which has null values. We can also nest a sequence within another sequence. So here is a sequence which has another sequence as its subitems. So the color red, green, blue is part of another sequence, and orange, yellow, brown is part of another sequence. Both of these sequences are element of another sequence. So here the parent-child relationship across different sequences is represented by indentation. Important thing to note, we use spaces for representing indentation or structure. Tabs are not allowed in YAML and they should not be used in YAML to represent structure. Otherwise, it will make the YAML invalid. Now let's look into another data type which is called map. Map are used to store name value pairs. They are mostly used for storing configuration parameters. They are represented as name followed by a colon and a space and the value. Here is an example: color, colon, and red. A map could be also stored as a nested map, which means its value could be another map. So here is an example of a nested map where you have unordered set of name value pairs. A is 1, B has another map as a value, which is C and D with values 3 and 4 respectively. Important to note here is map are unordered so that their sequence or the order in which the items appear, they do not matter. Here is an example of compact representation of the above map. This is by using curly brackets and each of the key value pair is separated by comma. Another important data structure is pairs. Pairs is ordered list of name values, which is slightly different than map because it allows duplicate values and it is an ordered list. That means sequence of key value pairs have significance. Many programming languages do not have such data type supported as a native data type. So in that case, it can be represented as array of hash tables. Here is an example. Task is a key which has a value which contains explicit tag pairs, and each of the items in the sequence is a key value pair, and meeting is a key which is duplicated multiple times. Here is the flow style representation. So we use here tag pairs to explicitly specify the type of the value, and which is represented as a square bracketed list of key value pairs. Let's move on to another important data type, which is set. Set is unordered collection of items, and each of the items should be distinct. Here is an example. We have players. There is again explicit typing to set this data type to set, and then each of the values is represented with the help of question mark and the name of the players. Mark, Steve, and Spit is items in the set. So this is flow style representation of set, which has a name, soccer team, and it has various items: Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool. One more advanced data type in YAML is dictionary. Dictionary is a data type where value in a mapping can be a sequence. Nested mappings are mappings which can contain assortment of mappings and sequence. Fruits, for example, is an ordered map. This is explicitly typed by using the tag OMAP. It has an element apple, which has a value which is a map having keys as calorie, fat, and carbs with values. And there is another item, banana, and subsequently we have a map which is the value of banana. So this is an example of a nested mapping where a mapping can be assortment of mappings and sequence. So fruits is a mapping of sequences in which each of the items is in turn a map. Now let's learn some of the special features of YAML. One such special feature is anchor. Let's consider an example. We have a data where we have various keys. One key is strawberry, another one is apple, and for each of these key there is an associated color which is represented by value RGB. So here I want to make both the color have the same value of red 25500. So I need to repeat the value twice. Instead of repeating these values, what I can do is I can define an anchor which is called red. I use ampersand character to define the anchor, and to reference it I will have to use asterisk or star character. Now what this means is the value 25500 is being referenced here as well. So the equivalent data will be as this. So this is a great way of reusing values which you have to repeat multiple times in the document. One more advanced feature is merging mapping. This is if you have a base object. For example, here I have a base object parent and it has some of the keys, name and age, which I would also want to reuse in another object, which is employee. So instead of repeating name and age again here, what I can do is I can define an anchor ampersand base for set of these key value pairs. and I can reference it using asterisk sign base here again. Also, I need to apply here 2 less than sign. This represents merge mapping. This makes all the properties of parent object assigned to the child object. So this is again another short form of representing data. I can add additional fields. For example, I have added here married equal to true. I can even override some value by saying age is 50. So here we have inherited the value name and age from parent, but we have overridden it by putting it as 50. So this is one special features or extension of anchors. Now we can also define a default value mapping. So here there is a default key which has a default value 1. So we use equal to and colon to represent default values. So if we don't specify a value, then the default value will be applied. So this is some of great special features in YAML language. Now we have covered all the language features. Hope you have become familiar and you are feeling comfortable to create and manipulate data in YAML format.